A black woman's womb is the most dangerous place for a black child to be. So if a black American, specifically a black woman, my conversation would be, give our black babies a chance. Look at the Republican Party in terms of President Donald J. Trump. This is what I would say. Don't look at the container, look at the content, right? Don't look at the man, look at the mission, right? Don't look at his past. Look at what your agenda is for your community in the future.
Conservatives are leading the charge to remove protections for voting rights, protections for maternal mortality, interventions in California, affirmative action, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sure. These are all issues that pertain directly to the people that I know that you serve in your community. Why should they support the party behind the hindrance, the advancement of the very things that I know you stand for?
Sure. Black people that I know, that I represent, that I've had these conversations with, they don't want to be put in a position because they're black. There's not one black person I know that will say to me, Lorenzo, I deserve this position because I'm black.
What's up, my good and beautiful people? Welcome back to another video. So today we're having a very interesting video, and it's often said that one bird will use the feathers of another one to make its nest warm. This talks about betrayal, that one brother or one sister might exploit this situation of another brother or another sister to their own benefit. So leading us into this conversation, this discussion for today, we're going to listen to a video here. It's probably going to either piss you off, make you a bit uncomfortable, angry, but most importantly, I hope we learn and educate ourselves from what we're going to consume in this video today. So let's first watch this video, and at the end of this video, we're going to have a detailed analysis from our own perspective. So let's go for it.
My name is Pastor Lorenzo Sewell. I have the honor and the privilege of being the senior pastor at 180 Church, and we were blessed last month to have President Donald Trump come to Detroit, Michigan. Let's go! Can you imagine it? Can you imagine President Donald Trump coming to a city and calling a pastor like me, a pastor who was born and raised on the east side of Detroit? I was mentored by murderers. I was a student of the street. But I had a radical experience with Jesus Christ that changed my life forever. President Trump came to a church that is in a Democratic stronghold. He came to a church to listen to average, everyday Americans like you and like me. He came to a church not to speak to us, but to listen to us. He came into a church, and a lot of people, they were upset. A lot of people, they would ask me questions. Why would you allow Donald Trump to come into your church? President Donald Trump, he came during his birthday weekend. Let me ask you a question. Grand old party, what would you do for your birthday if you were worth $6.7 billion? What would you do for your birthday? Would you come to Detroit? Would you come into the hood? He came to the hood because he cares about average, everyday Americans. Grand old party, I need to ask you a question. What would you ask for your birthday? If you could go to Mar-a-Lago, or if you could go to New York, what would you ask for your birthday? And when we prayed for President Trump, only God knew that 30 days later, there would be a miracle by a millimeter. Only God knew that if we prayed for him during his birthday, there would be a miracle by a millimeter. If President Trump had moved 1 millimeter, he wouldn't have been here on Monday to talk to us about how America was going to be made wealthy again. If President Donald Trump would have moved just a millimeter, he wouldn't have been here on Tuesday to talk about how he was going to make America secure again. If President Donald Trump would have moved just a millimeter, he wouldn't have been here on Wednesday to tell us how he was going to make America strong again. And if President Trump would have moved just a millimeter, we will not be hearing tonight how he was going to make America great again. Before I take my seat, I just got to talk to you about something called providence and something called sovereignty. God's sovereignty is his ability to be able to do what he wants when he wants because he's God. And God's providence, it's when he does what he wants, when he wants, for all of you. Did you know that President Trump was shot on 6/11? And do you know that Ephesians chapter number 6, verse number 11 says, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. All my friends back in Detroit who are Democrats, I want to ask you just one simple question. You can't deny the power of God on this man's life. You can't deny that God protected him. You cannot deny that it was a millimeter miracle that was able to save this man's life. Could it be that Jesus Christ preserved him for such a time as this? Could it be? Could it be that when we prayed for him when he came to the round table in Detroit, that Jesus asked and he received, that we sought him and then he found protection? Could it be that the King of glory, the Lord God strong and mighty, the God who is mighty in battle, protected Donald Trump because he wants to use him for such a time as this? If you believe that, come on, put your hands together.
Given Trump's well-documented history of saying and doing racist things, I wanted to know how these black people could be drawn into Trump's political orbit. So I talked to Pastor Lorenzo Sewell.
Yeah, so anyone that wants to come to church, they're able to come. So when President Trump called, I thought about it like you calling me and saying, hey, Pastor, I want to invite a friend to church who has 34 felonies. Hey, Pastor, I want to invite a friend to church who is a womanizer. Hey, Pastor, I want to invite a friend to church who could be a racist.
He's the lead pastor at a black church in Detroit that Trump visited earlier this year. And he was also a featured speaker at the RNC.
Why should black people support the Republican ticket and Donald Trump specifically?
That's a good question. You know, what I would say to any black person is this, specifically about the Republican platform. I would say, look, do your research, right? I would say, look back to 170 years ago in this state where a group of patriots stood up and they started that grand old party to stop the expansion of slavery. If a black person said, well, Pastor, Donald Trump is racist, the Republican Party is racist, well, let's play that theme out throughout history. Let's look at who was the party of slavery, who was the party of Jim Crow, right? Who was the party of the slave codes? Well, those are Democrats. Let's have that conversation. And when you look at when the Senate was integrated, those were black Republicans. When we look at Frederick Douglass, black Republican. So that's on the political side, why I believe that a black American should be willing to look at the Republican platform. In terms of my political convictions as a pastor, my conviction in my heart. A black woman's womb is the most dangerous place for a black child to be. So if a black American, specifically a black woman, my conversation would be, give our black babies a chance. Look at the Republican Party in terms of President Donald J. Trump. This is what I would say. Don't look at the container, look at the content, right? Don't look at the man, look at the mission, right? Don't look at his past. Look at what your agenda is for your community in the future.
Conservatives are leading the charge to remove protections for voting rights, protections for maternal mortality, interventions in California, affirmative action, diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are all issues that pertain directly to the people that I know that you serve in your community. Why should they support the party behind the hindrance, the advancement of the very things that I know you stand for?
Sure. Black people that I know, that I represent, that I've had these conversations with, they don't want to be put in a position because they're Black. There's not one Black person I know that will say to me, Lorenzo, I deserve this position because I'm Black.
But I want to. You know that's not what DEI is. DEI is about fair hiring practices, opening up opportunity, like creating pathways.
But you're smart. You're an intelligent man, and those that would say this, I believe they're very intelligent. It costs more money not to hire the person who's the best than to be racist. It actually costs more money. So if you're the best at what you do, right? And let's just say I'm a racist. So let's just say that, let's play that out, right? And let's just say, hey, there are 20 white guys that are not as competent as you, but I'm not gonna pick you because you're Black. It's gonna cost me more money.
They don't even know that this qualified person exists, right?
Sure, I hear you.
The pathways are the problem. And a lot of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is doing is creating those and helping to clarify those pathways. And so framing it as an unqualified person getting the job when we know, you and I both know, that there are plenty of qualified Black people or Latino people or women who don't end up with jobs.
100%. And I agree with you. I do think relationships and proximity matter.
In my reporting, I've spoken to Clay Kane, who wrote a book about grifters, how sometimes Black Republicans will align themselves with political power for their own personal advantage.
Sure.
What do you say to a person who says, hey, like, you're a talented, gifted person, but we didn't necessarily know who you were, but now you're speaking on one of the biggest platforms in the world tonight?
Quite frankly, I don't need another opportunity to speak. Has the Republican Party said, Lorenzo, we're gonna write you a big check? No. If they did, it's just gonna go right to the community anyway, right at the end of the day, because that's where my salary goes.
You've mentioned Frederick Douglass and others from the 1800s, early 1900s. In those times, Black Republicans were elected by Black people.
Sure.
Today, Black Republicans, they're elected in majority white districts.
Agreed.
Why is it difficult, maybe even some would say impossible for a Black Republican to be elected in a Black?
That's a good question. You know what? I wrestle with that. I think the biggest problem is the Republican Party, in my opinion, they have, I believe, drifted from their roots in terms of Black people having authority within that party. I don't believe the Republican Party has learned well how to support financially those who are Black Republicans that want to come out the closet. I equate it to being gay back in the 50s or 60s, right? Or even 70s. You didn't come out the closet then, like the movie Philadelphia, right? Because you could be ostracized. So it is with being a Black conservative. We have been, the Lord has blessed our church. He's been very kind to us to really serve our community. However, me just having President Trump at our church, if I could play the voicemail, sir, these are the ones I haven't had time to delete. If I could send you the emails where it's like, really? I mean, people that I thought loved me, they're like calling me everything but a child of God. I'm like, hold on for a second. Can we have a conversation? Why are you like, not?
How has that made you feel?
You know, I was a drug dealer. I was a street pharmacist, right? Former. So people that you love are hurts. I have to be frank with you, you know, but other people that don't know you, don't understand your motives, I get it. When tensions are high, motives are questions. And tensions have been high in our country as it pertains to politics. So people question my motives. I understand that. But for the people that love you, it hurts. It really does. And that's the reason why Black people won't come out the closet.
Well, I think I understand when Black people were furious at the pastor Lorenzo of Detroit, a Black pastor, for hosting Donald Trump. I understand their frustration. Well, but there's so much we can talk about from this video concerning everything that happened. You know, this was right before Trump became president, and the events that followed shortly thereafter, after his inauguration, so on and so forth. But we're not gonna talk about everything in this single video. But we can talk a little bit about betrayal as I had introduced from the very beginning. So let's go back into history a little bit. So the reason why, one of the main reason, if not the only reason why Black people of African descent exist today in the Americas is because of a sort of betrayal. Brothers and sisters sold out, literally sold like commodities, their own brothers to the white imperialists at that time. And we don't have these conversations well enough, adequately, like Black people. And it is really time, I believe, we need to talk about this openly. Maybe these are some of the hindrances and the obstacles that continue to perpetrate and drive the deep division entrenched in us as Black people. Maybe the reason why we Black people, African American and Africans, don't actually get along is because we don't talk about things that happened historically. And we might claim that those were actions of our ancestors, and it's good that we share their ancestry, but the mess was created by someone that's not here, but who continues to suffer the consequences or the results of the mess. It is us that are here. So we'd rather start to address the mess because we are suffering the mess, even though created by our forefathers, our great grandparents, or our grandparents, or even our parents, or our ancestors, as you might want to address. Okay, now just coming back to this Black pastor. One thing is that has been in a sharp rise or a proliferation recently is, and this video is not really about talking about the church and any religious stuff, but it is undeniably true that a lot of pastors or religious leaders, for that matter, have been letting politics seep slowly into the church's platform. The church is quite becoming political, and it's really it's I can say it is a contaminating religion as it is in the very first place. And we are getting a sharp rise in con artists masquerading as religious leaders. And I'm not calling anyone a con artist, but this is the truth. People calling themselves religious leaders, but who are business-oriented people that are right there to milk the situation as it is. Black Republicans get their backing from white people. Why not from their own community? There's something that is definitely not adding up, and we must face the truth. Something is not adding up. It is a betrayal. It is a betrayal because we Black people, first thing, I believe, we must not accept our Blackness or our beautiful Blackness to be relegated to just a skin color, because it is not a skin color. Blackness for us is an identity. It is an identity, and not just a racial identity, but a political identity as well. And this pastor says at some point that he loves Donald Trump because he came to the ground to talk to the common American person on the ground. But sorry, I think he needs to be corrected that not because he has the interest of the common American at heart, no, but because he needed the votes, and the votes are with the people on the ground, and that he is a politician, and politicians go far and wide, as long as they can do that to get the votes, to put them in that position that they wish to be in. I've seen this before. Black people taking advantage of a situation, at the expense of their own people, have thrown their own community under the bus for selfish personal gain. And for me, this could really be one of those case scenarios, because we're not calling Trump a racist because of the media, as he's trying to put it. But now we have seen everything that gives us the ground from which we can call him and his circle racist. So it is not influence of the media. It is what he's saying. He's saying we should forget about the history of who he was, what he did. No, really. We know people. We get to know someone or something from looking at their history. Don't tell us he's going to change, because, yes, he is a president right now and he has not changed. Black people have had a tendency, some black people who have been people who had a stage from which they can uphold our blackness and stand firm and advocate. But people that have had that opportunity, we have seen them lean towards the white power structure. And anytime they leaned toward the white power structure, you know what happened? Betrayal happened. This pastor even went ahead to launch a crypto, a meme coin in his name. The same thing that President Donald Trump had done shortly after his inauguration. And we really know right now that the best way to beat the system in terms of bribing your way to something is circumventing the conventional ways where you get at loggerheads with the CIA, with the authorities, with the feds, and it is going through the crypto way. What is the coincidence that the pastor Lorenzo, launched a crypto and Donald Trump launched a crypto? What is the ethics of a pastor launching a crypto and asking his followers to buy into his idea? Pastor Lorenzo, known for his involvement in political and religious circles, ventured into a cryptocurrency space by launching a meme coin named Lorenzo. That was shortly after delivering the benediction at President Donald Trump's inauguration on January the 20th this year, 2025. So on the day of the inauguration, Lorenzo announced the release of the Lorenzo coin via social media, urging his followers to invest in it to support his ministry's initiative, including transportation and food services. He stated that cryptocurrency community had gifted him the Lorenzo token, which he locked into a liquidity pool to earn fees as the token flourished. So what about the market performance of this coin? So the Lorenzo coin experienced extreme volatility immediately after its launch. Initially valued at a fraction of a penny, the token's market value briefly peaked at approximately 4.5 billion USD within hours, but then it plummeted by 93% shortly thereafter. These rapid rise and fall are characteristic of meme coin, of course, which often lack intrinsic value and are subject to speculative trading. And of course, there was a sharp public reaction. So the launch of the Lorenzo coin drew significant criticism from various quarters. Some social media users accused Lorenzo of exploiting his religious platform for personal gain, labeling the venture a grift and questioning the ethics of promoting a high-risk financial product to his congregation. Critics argue that such actions could be seen as taking advantage of the poor, which contradict to the teachings in the gospel. Well, one thing I must insist is blackness is not a skin color. Blackness is a racial identity, is a political identity. And when we call it that a political identity, it calls for us to stick together as black people. Isn't it time for a black political identity, a unified black political identity that advocates, that advances for purely black interests at all times, at all corners? And it must go beyond the United States of America, must go beyond African continent or Europe or anywhere else where black people are. It should be a global phenomenon, a global affair. So what I'm trying to say is, as black people, we must be very careful, because some of us might take advantage of a situation for personal gain and throw all of us under the bus. We must vet, we must be careful. But of greater importance is our unity and purpose to make blackness a political identity that brings us together as black people. And once again, I will insist, the actions of our ancestors, the mess of our ancestors, are our responsibility to take care of, because they are not here today, but we are the victims of the mess. Can't we just have conversations that this and this happened, but how do we go around it? Like I've always said in my videos, racism, white supremacy is a white man's mess, and it is a white man's responsibility to make things right. If someone made a mess and left the house, for example, if you're in that house, the mess will sting and it will affect you, and you will suffer under that until you decide to take care of the mess, even though you might not have been the one who made the mess, but you're the one suffering under the mess, so you're the one who needs to take care of the mess. I don't know what you think about this. I'd love to really get your opinions to this. You can leave me a comment, but give this video a thumbs up and share this video if you like it. And if you're just coming across this video for the first time, this channel for the first time, please hit that subscribe button to be part of this community. Check out our other videos to know more on what we deal with. So until next time, I will really be happy to see you in the next video. Peace out.